Welcome to another episode of Haven of Horror. We're on episode 18. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or other platforms, it's going to be a little bit of a different episode count because I didn't upload some of our early episodes because, well, they were kind of bad, just to be brutally honest.
Well, they weren't too bad, but
They were bad because we didn't know what we were doing. I think we've gotten the groove down um, between me and Milton here. And today we are discussing a genre that is very close and dear to my heart: zombies. But before that, if nobody has noticed, and I'm sure you all did, we have a new logo. Thanks, courtesy to my best friend, Fabulously Terrible, as he goes by online. So I just want to say thank you to him for that. I really dig the white text.
yeah, I think it
And
looks great. Yeah.
if you're listening to this on Spotify or Anchor or any of the other platforms, thank you very much for that. We have about hit 100 listens between the few different platforms. Um, and words just cannot express how much I appreciate you guys for listening to this podcast. Horror obviously is a genre that I love very much, and I get to enjoy talking about it every week with this guy. I'm kind of stuck with him, but
Well,
I'm
you
kidding.
want
No,
to hear with me?
he offers some unique perspective because obviously you weren't much of a horror guy before this, right?
No, not really. I watched a few horror movies here and there, but it wasn't usually my thing. Uh, But I
Um,
have grown an appreciation for this genre now.
yeah, and
So
that's part of the fun in this for me is just watching him, learn to appreciate this genre.
yeah,
Um,
despite certain entries, but we'll get into that later. Yeah.
so I don't really have any other too many announcements. Although I did want to share some news with you guys. If nobody has heard, it looks like the new Evil Dead film is going to New Line for production, which means it is coming to HBO Max. I personally am okay with this. I don't know how I feel about this new Evil Dead project. I like that remake well enough, but I don't know. It's just all the right people are behind the scenes, but like Bruce Campbell's not in it, and it's just not Evil Dead without Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like if you're not going to have the most recognizable face as, the protagonist of this story, what kind of story are you trying to tell? Is it just because it's the Evil Dead remake is fine, but it's also kind of just a horror movie, whereas the original Evil Dead's kind of are transcended because of just Bruce Campbell's presence on screen and what Sam Raimi is comfortable doing with Bruce Campbell. So
But last, that's really all I just wanted to mention because that's really the only big horror news that I've seen this week. Um, and obviously we haven't been doing news lately just because it is hard to keep fresh news to announce every week. But I thought that was interesting. So I think we're just gonna do this in release order.
yeah,
Obviously quite a long time between these two movies. And a director that has changed quite a bit from 2004 to 2021.
yes, very much so.
So, because I'm curious, and I think this is your first time watching both of these films,
Mm.
tell us about Dawn of the Dead 2004.
Yes, Dawn of the Dead, as you said, 2004, is directed by Zach Snyder and written by James Gunn, which I found to be interesting. Sorry, got interrupted for a second. But yeah, James Gunn is the writer for this, which I found to be pretty cool. We also happen to get a cameo from Tom Savini as well in one of the roles. But yeah, the essential thing is not a whole big plot thing with this movie. It's a nurse gets exposed to the zombie outbreak pretty quickly, and eventually she and a group of survivors make their way towards a shopping mall. And that's where we spend the majority of the movie until they become a little stir crazy and realizing that they don't want to stay in one place for much longer surrounded by zombies. They want to make their way towards an island for refuge.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, this obviously doesn't hold a candle to the original, but the original is like the zombie film. So, for anybody out there who's listening who expects us to like trash on this movie because it's not as good as the original. At least for me, I don't want to put words into Milton's mouth, but that is not going to happen because there was no way in hell this was ever going to even live to the up to the original. The original is the zombie film. It is where like Night of the Living Dead, of course, is the first zombie film, but Dawn of the Dead is where everything, all the rules are solidified, where the gore really starts to kick in. But I think this movie is really good as just its own standalone film.
Yeah. I I or I originally intended to actually watch the original Dawn of the Dead, but I decided not to because I wanted to see where this movie was kind of just isolated within my own perspective and then see the original one a bit later. And my personal opinion is it's not going to be like the greatest movie of all time, but I like it. I think it's got some good character drama stuff going on. I think it makes effective use of the shopping mall. Um, yeah, it's got good action. Some character dialogue could be better here and there, but generally speaking, I like the characters, or at least the range of characters that we're working
So since you brought up the Tom Savini cameo,
with. Mm,
I love that scene because Tom Savini isn't the only cameo there. But if you haven't seen the
mhm,
original Dawn, you're not going to get it.
mhm.
So the army guy that's like that's interviewed on the news, he is in the original. He's one of the main actors, and the biblical guy, uh, that's like he is
That
also in the original, and they okay. So you
I
could say
recognize
this
him
is
though.
fan servicey, but I think this is good fan service because they don't draw attention to it. If you didn't see the original, you're not gonna get it. But he comes back and he says the exact same line that he says in the original. When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.
Some people, I can understand why some people might take issue with it because if you just the retread might be obnoxious, but for me, someone seeing it for the first time, I don't find it obnoxious at all. In fact, I think it's a pretty well delivered, series of lines.
Yeah, and like for me, it's just cool seeing Ken Foree because like that guy's awesome. Um, but yeah, so that those are the three big cameos that I remember. Is you get the two of the actors from the original, and of course Tom Savini, who did all the effects and cameos in the original as well. Or not even cameoed. He's just in it. I can't wait to do an episode on that movie. That's one of my favorites. So did any specific because we get a lot more characters in this film. The original film obviously is a much lower budget. It really only focuses on four characters. This movie has a bigger budget and they bring in more characters, a lot of which are just there to be like gore fodder, which I'm fine with. Like I'm here for the gore. Did any characters stand out for you?
Oh yeah, certainly. Usually a lot of the focus is centered around the characters that we see the most of in the beginning, which I can appreciate. Um, I like the cop. I like the nurse. For me, the names of these characters do not solidify in my head because one of the weaknesses of films like these is because you don't exactly remember the names of the characters very well, but you understand them by the function that they serve in society. Because those functions will usually come out in the film. So the nurse, the policeman, the TV salesman. Those are usually the big three. Those are the ones that stuck out to me the most. Of course, they're propped up a bit by their supporting cast as well. Um, the suspected deviant with the pregnant wife. I say suspected deviant because the policeman is always throwing shade on him, possibly alluding to maybe the fact that he's not completely on the up and up.
See, I don't think
Um,
it's even alluded to because even he says, I've done some bad shit in my day.
well, I say alluded because we never know specifically what he's done, but to the point, he's a very interesting character because he kind of just spirals because of where his wife is at. It kind of leads to probably one of the more horrifying scenes that I've ever seen in a zombie thing where, a zombie gives birth to a zombie baby. And of course, the way I describe it makes it sound comical. It's really not. It's horrifying and very tragic.
So, okay. It's funny that you describe it that way because there is another movie. It's one of Peter Jackson's early films, where it's Dead Alive, and it's a horror comedy. but it has a zombie giving birth to a zombie baby, and it is played for comedy, like how you described. But this, what we see here, is obviously the very serious, like horrifying version of that. But it just popped into my brain. But I agree with you that I also don't remember anyone's names. I don't think they mention them that often.
Not
Um,
really.
but I can't even count that against this movie because, like in the original, I can't remember anyone's names because they all have like really boring generic names. I only remember the one because he has a nickname of Flyboy because he's a pilot. But anyway, um, I love the cop dude. He's probably my favorite, but that's mostly because it's Ving Rhames, and like Ving Rhames is awesome.
Ving Rhames is you can't go wrong with that casting. He's probably the best cast role in this entire movie, honestly.
It's him or the salesman guy. I
He's
really like
also
that
pretty
sales.
good. He's played by Jake Weaver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who sadly it seems like he's just kind of like pops up in random things.
He's not in he's actually surprisingly in quite a few films from yeah, even present time. Yeah, most recent one he did was Those Who Wish Me Dead in 2021. But he hasn't had a whole lot of like mainline title stuff. Uh White House Down, but other than that, you
Well,
get
and I
fun
saw
with it.
that Those Who Wish Me Dead. It was all right, but he's a bit part. He's only in like the first 30
He's
minutes
in
of that.
he's in the most recent Midway movie about the Battle of Midway in 2019. I
But
mean, you know, the battle in World War II. The movie was made in
I yeah,
2019.
and I think what this movie does well is it balances that zombie apocalypse, and this is much more of an action film than the original is, of course. But you also just get downtime with these characters,
Yep.
which is much needed, and it balances the two very well. And like you get kind of a bit of a potential romance with the nurse and the TV salesman, and they have
Uh,
decent chemistry together.
I think it's an outright romance because we get to the point where they're kissing, and I think they do like an opening to a sex scene, but then cut away like right before it happens.
Oh,
So
see, I say a bit
yeah,
because we get the makeout scene, um, but then not much else after that from what I saw, because other things get in the way, and so they never
sure.
really. And then, of course, tragically, he dies at the end.
Yeah.
And I legitimately feel bad for the nurse and him because like they seem like decent people.
I mean, I honestly feel bad for everyone, honestly, because I mean, of course, I wonder if we should even say spoilers. I wonder if
This
we should
movie
even
is
bother
how
by this
old
point.
now?
Now, I mean, not just for that, but every time we talk about movies, we're going to talk about spoiler elements to it. Um, but I almost wish that I had not seen the credits. I would have just shut it off because at least there might be hope for these people. But of course, in typical fashion with these movies, naturally things are going to get a whole lot worse at the end. You know,
Yeah,
to
I'm pretty sure, and I will continue to say it just because I don't want people comments being like, "How dare you spoil this 18-year-old movie for me," or however old this movie is. But so for the longest time, I never watched the credits because I didn't realize there was stuff after it. And it was only a few years ago because I've seen this movie quite a number of times. I saw this in theaters twice. The first time I actually left early because it scared the shit out of me. But I was like 12, 13. This was one of my first horror flicks.
that's fair.
Um, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's evident that they all die at the end. Like they get to that
Yeah,
island
their boat runs out of fuel, they land at the island, and they're immediately mobbed by zombies. There's no way they survive.
and it's a shame because like I like these characters. Even the mall security guards at the end, at least the two of them, I think, redeem themselves.
Yeah, it's kind of. It's like he has nowhere to go, and so he at least goes for it. He's sensible at least to act with the group.
Well, but he
Um,
only has nowhere to go because he stayed behind to lure them in, and
yeah,
he ends up trapped. That's why. Like he doesn't necessarily sacrifice himself just because he's trapped. Like he's trapped because of a choice that he made.
that's true. But I guess if it's one thing, I'm not sure if I can count against it because the whole remake thing is that you want to stay true to The tone of these movies, especially to Dawn of the Dead back then. I haven't seen the original. I assume it doesn't end well, and I assume it ends tragically for everyone. If it doesn't, then I question the decision of why you would want to send your characters to an early grave after you try to punch up the fact that there could be hope in the horizon.
So here's the thing. This movie stays true to the original in places, but it's
Mhm.
also doing its own thing enough so that I am okay with them having a darker ending than the original. Especially because, so slight spoilers for the original. In the original, we never leave the mall. Once we get there, we never leave until and that's the end of the movie is the surviving characters leaving the mall. This movie, the moment they leave the mall, it is doing its own thing. So anything after that, I'm okay with. It's not like the 2008 remake of Day of the Dead, where the entire movie doesn't take place in a military bunker until the last 15 minutes, and then they're all cute about how, oh, we got this underground bunker, because the original Day of the Dead takes place in a military bunker. I think this movie does a good job of balancing. Yes, we are a remake to Dawn of the Dead. Like here's the mall, here's the zombies. Now we're gonna do our own thing.
Okay. Yeah, but aside from that snag, I generally enjoyed the movie. Um, yeah,
Snyder's first film.
yeah,
Can and it's crazy to think about though too, right? His first movie is a remake of one of the biggest horror films like ever.
yeah. We got it's like some smaller projects beforehand, but this really is his magnum opus. Um, no, I disagree. No, I'm sorry. I take it back. Oh no. Okay, there was one thing he did. It was called Playground, which was a short film. And it was also another 2004 short film that he did in the same year as Dawn of the Dead. But other than that, yeah.
Well, let me rephrase. This is his feature film debut as a director.
But no, even so, it's not a whole lot of experience going into a project as big as this. And
And
you get James Gunn as well, starting out. I think starting out, or at least it's one of his earlier stuff.
he had worked on I
Um,
think the Scooby Doo movies before this.
yeah, he did four other feature films. He did Scooby Doo in 2002, The Specials, Terror Firmer, and Tromeo and Juliet.
Yeah, he did a lot of the trauma movies.
Yeah,
They're like C grade horror. Um I don't
yeah.
know.
But
I
he
I've
also,
I've never gotten the appeal, but I'd like to try to watch some of that stuff again.
yeah,
I like those. I have a soft spot for those like trashy, underground B movies. But anyway, back to this film.
back to this one. Yeah,
I love how this film looks. It's stylized without not being overbearing about it, and I
sure.
think a lot of Snyder's like signatures start here. But it's almost a Snyder that's in control of his like style.
It's probably before he got really obsessed with just slow motion all the time. And a lot of he was definitely a lot more measured and probably had a lot less control over the project compared to some of his later stuff. So I imagine he probably wanted to play it safer with more classic film shooting rather than, trying to be a bit more experimental or be a bit more heavily stylized, like in something like Watchmen, for instance, where
Yeah,
you can clearly tell it's a Zack Snyder film because of so much slow mo, so much like overexposed shots. But you get a lot of good filming here. You can clearly tell everything that's on screen, everything's shot well. If we
that
could say anything about
opening,
Zack Snyder, no matter if it's a well-written movie or a badly written movie,
it looks good.
yeah,
Um, the opening I think is one of the best. Just like the opening, like 10 minutes with her just in her neighborhood is one of the best. Just like openings descending into chaos I've ever seen on film.
it is pretty good, honestly. We get like the first like fake out inside of
Mhm.
the ambulance, which I love that touch because if the movie is acknowledging, yeah, we know you're watching a horror movie. in a zombie movie specifically.
Yeah.
There is
Well,
red herring, and then we get into it.
and so I think the other thing that we need to talk about, and I think this movie hasn't been kind of critically reappraised because I don't think many people liked it when it first came out. But as time has gone on, people have been like, yeah, for a remake, it's pretty good. The other thing I think we need to talk about, which was the big talking point from people I know who love like the Romero films, is the zombies themselves. This is very 28 Days Later uh esque. I don't know if you've seen that, but
No, but I've heard of it.
so the thing with 28 Days Later was it was the first film where the infected, and yes, for anybody who's listening, they are infected. They are not zombies in 28 Days Later. They are fundamentally different. But anyway, pet peeve of mine. They run.
Oh, yep.
And in this movie, of course, they also run. Zombie movies up until 28 Days Later, as far as I am aware, you get some stuff like Return of the Living Dead, but that's more of an outrageous comedy. Wait, I said Return of the Living Dead, right?
Yeah, did you mean Day of the Dead?
No, I meant Return of the Living Dead. You
Okay.
get stuff like that where they kind of run, but that movie's like more of a farce movie. It's really good, but it's a comedy. But in like a serious horror film, zombies shamble. They walked and they moaned. In this, they are like running and jumping and all this shit. And I think a lot of people were taken aback by that. But
Probably.
fast zombie has kind of just become a cultural staple at this point. So I think a lot of people went back and like, yeah, this movie is not as bad as we thought.
I guess we're definitely a bit more used to it now. We can also make comments on zombie strength and whatnot in Army of the Dead when we talk about that film
Oh, I've
later.
got a whole thing about Army of the Dead.
Yeah. But so concerning whether people liked it or not, it drew in a profit. It had a budget of $26 million, which was not a small budget for a movie of its time. Not the biggest one, but not a small one either. Box office, 102 million.
It's
So it
not
got a
bad.
pretty good return. Um, yeah.
Well, I
It,
mean, let's be honest. This is a remake of the zombie film. Whether
yeah.
people liked it or not, it was
It was
gonna
gonna
do
get a
well.
draw from audiences, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. Remember Dawn of the Dead?
Remember Zambos?
Um, yeah, I like it for the style of this film because it's much more action oriented. And I think with an action movie like this, you need a faster, like more dangerous zombie type, or else it's just
Yes.
people mowing down slow moving zombies. Um,
I would say the montage scene certainly helps with the pacing quite a bit, because although we want to get character drama stuff, just develop it with some quick shots through a montage to kind of establish how these characters have interacted with each other before we get to the next, in some ways inciting moment to basically get people out of the mall. Um,
it also
yeah.
helps keep the tone a little bit lighter because that song is obviously that cover is very comedic. Uh, Richard Cheese is down with the sickness.
Yeah, Zack Snyder likes his music references and other tracks, and sometimes, to my critique, I think maybe a little too many covers, I would think. But for the most part, the music choices are fine. Sometimes a little intrusive, though. Like the elevator music scene, I think is a weird portion to try to break the tension a bit, but you
Oh,
know.
see, I'm just used to that in film. Be-
By now, I guess we have to be, considering everyone makes a comment or does something, comedic inside of an elevator because the characters are stuck, they can't move anywhere. But
yeah, I mean there's not much else to say. This isn't a super complicated movie. It's not a super deep film. It's a good time. And it's only an hour and like what, 30 minutes, 40 minutes?
yeah, around that time, it's a reasonable length for a movie like this. It's not too dissimilar from the length of like the Romero movies of back then.
Oh, no, 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 no. The original Dawn of the Dead is like 2.5 hours.
Oh, never mind. I take back what I said. So it's more like Army of the Dead then.
And I have multiple things to say about Army of the Dead
Yeah,
because
we'll get into that. But yeah, I like the characters again. I like the whole distant sniper on the roof. his interaction with Ving Rhames, I think, is probably one of the highlights of this movie that I really like. Um,
There is also a special feature on the DVD back in the day, and to show you how old I am, apparently, I had this on VHS tape when it first came out, so I didn't have any of the special features, but I saw it on YouTube years later. But there is a special feature they shot for this, the last days of Andy, and it's like his side of the movie up until his death. Really interesting. I'll have to see if I could find that on YouTube. But I thought that was a neat little thing to mention since you brought up the sniper. But yeah, I like him. I think it's kind of a haunting image after he's turned, where they're like, "Oh, he's writing something. You know, what's he writing?" And he just holds it up, and it's blood.
yeah. It's darkly comedic in a way, which you could say about quite a bit of this film, where the zombies will act in accordance to their habits when they were alive, and then decide to just completely digress and, you know,
Mm.
become flesh eaters. I feel like I take the zombies a bit more seriously as a threat because they're stronger and because they can run. And,
Well, I agree. And this movie it feels more like the zombies are a threat and like an overwhelming force. The thing with the Romero films is it was never about the zombies. The zombies were just there to be a catalyst for the story and for what Romero wanted to say.
yeah,
Dawn of the Dead is in the original Dawn of the Dead a little bit because this just turned into a review of the original. I'm kidding. We'll probably mention all this again when we do Dawn of the Dead, which will be soon because I've been in a zombie mood lately now. But the original is more of a critique on commercialism using zombies, which is funny that you mentioned that because the whole idea is that zombies come back to the mall.
right. They touch on that a little bit in this movie, but definitely not to the extent that the original would. If you told me that this movie would be about commercialism, then I would say, I think you're looking into this a little too deeply." It's definitely more of an action movie first, character drama second.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't really see a whole lot of social commentary in this movie aside from the idea of power dynamics, because definitely get the security guards and we get some critiques on, you know, figures in power kind of giving abuse to it,
Yeah.
and then the common man takes over and they're much better at managing. But you know,
Yep.
there's like a little bit of social commentary in like Army of the Dead as well, but I think it's a little bit sloppier than this, which
Well, yeah. So anyway,
we might as
I
well just talk
think
about the second movie.
yeah, I think we're gonna move on to final thoughts about Dawn of the Dead. I think this movie deserves to be on the list of all time horror great remake greats. There's not many of them, mind you. But I think this deserves a spot to be remembered fondly as a decent remake of a classic film. It doesn't touch the original, but nothing ever will, in my opinion, of course.
You can enjoy the two. You
Yeah,
can enjoy both movies.
I
That is
enjoy them both
perfectly
for
fine.
different reasons, you know. Um, I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 5,
Mm.
and I will watch this. I've been watching this since I was like 14. Of course, I'm gonna watch it again. What about you, Milton? Final thoughts and score.
I'll give it a little bit less with a 3.75. I think it's a fine film. I'd watch it again with a group of people if they wanted to. I don't know if I would watch it on my own again personally. It's there's nothing wrong with it exactly. It's just you kind of go into it, you get the idea, you enjoy what you watch. There's not really a whole lot underneath the surface beyond that. But it is definitely interesting to see Zack Snyder's first film and to see one of James Gunn's first, successful films as a screenwriter, which
Yeah,
is definitely an interesting conversation getting into Army of the Dead when we talk about dynamics between James Gunn and Zack Snyder in terms of production history.
yeah. So, just to give a little preamble about our next film, Army of the Dead, I was super excited when this was announced. I am obviously a decent Zack Snyder fan. I like most of his films, but I also, as we just got done talking about for like half an hour, I love his Dawn of the Dead. So when he announced, "Oh, I'm going back to the zombie genre where I started," I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" I'm you know, and then the plot synopsis came out and I was like, a heist film in a zombie apocalypse? Sure, why the fuck not, you know? And then I saw the movie. So the basic premise of this movie is Dave Bautista gets hired to rob a safe in the middle of a zombie infested Las Vegas, and he recruits a team and they go in and try to steal the safe. Um, my initial thought when I saw that runtime is Zack Snyder, you were not George Romero. This movie does not need to be 2.5 hours.
No, not at all. Uh, Real quick before we get into more of the plot, so the reason why I brought up James Gunn quite a bit is because Dave Bautista specifically, the main star of this movie, was going to be a part of the Suicide Squad, written directed by James Gunn. And he decided, I guess he was getting an offer from Zack Snyder to do Army of the Dead, just looked at the script, said, "You know what? I'm sorry, James Gunn. We're really close. We're great friends, but I think Army of the Dead is going to be better for my career than the Suicide Squad."
That's a damn shame.
It's 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 such a misstep. I don't understand what was going on with his head because if he was understanding the history behind this, he could have joined the franchise that Zack Snyder was leaving, which would probably be better, honestly, with
Oh
his
wait,
departure.
sorry, you're talking about Batista?
Yeah, to Batista specifically. Yeah.
Okay, so I remember reading about that. Sorry, I thought you said Zack Snyder was offered to direct, like James Gunn
No,
wanted. My bad.
no, no.
Okay, so I understand where he's coming from though, because in the Suicide Squad he would have had a bit part,
That's
from my
true.
understanding, and he wanted to be the leading man.
It is understandable, but then it turns out like this, and it's like,
Yeah, but I'm just gonna say it up front. He was my favorite part of this movie.
oh no, of a lot of stuff that doesn't work very well, he works pretty decently in this movie. It's just unfortunately some of the side characters that are supporting him that don't exactly give him a lot to work with, unfortunately. But he tries his best with what he's given. He's a good
I
actor.
I at the end of the day, I think I kind of liked the father daughter relationship with him and that girl. Um,
I would if there was more there, because it's unfortunately a bit of a cliche, well, sorry, a trope, I mean to say, where you have the deadbeat father figure trying to reconnect with his daughter, and they reconnect at the end when he dies. That is pretty much what it is. There's nothing that much underneath. And in the end, it makes the daughter look a bit. I didn't like the daughter at all, unfortunately.
I'm gonna fight you a little bit on that because I think it's a little more complicated than just he's a deadbeat dad. Because if you remember, the whole reason that he's distanced from his daughter is he withdrew into himself after being forced to kill her mom.
Right.
So it's a little more complicated than just he's a bad dad. It's he he didn't reach out because he was consumed with his own guilt, and she didn't reach out because she was mad at him for not reaching out. It's and I'm not saying it's great writing or anything, but I don't think it's as black and white. It's just he was a bad dad.
Oh, no, I didn't communicate it to myself very well because no, I actually don't blame him a whole lot because he's out there killing zombies. It's like saving the Secretary of Defense. He's a busy dude. And of course he doesn't want to bring his daughter into the situations that he's in.
No, no,
But
no.
of course he probably shouldn't also be wholly separated from his daughter for many years either, but I don't know.
That's a good point.
It it
Okay,
get it gets difficult to judge because I feel like we don't get enough of a development so that we can take this character's relationship very seriously. I almost kind of wanted to see the whole "let's save the Secretary of Defense" story over this.
I would have what I was wanting from this movie. Okay, so I'm all on board for the heist film that he wanted to do, and with the backdrop of a zombie. But with the movie that we got, I would have rather either seen that or just seen them trapped in a zombie filled Las Vegas,
You know,
trying to get out.
that would have been more interesting. I was thinking when I was reading the synopsis, or even before that, if it was going to be a heist movie, have it be they rob a bank, the heist happens, and then the zombie apocalypse happens, and then we get, they're trapped in that space,
That would be
and then
awesome.
yeah, or we do the Las Vegas approach. We do something similar with that, but it's Las Vegas. You get a bit more things to do with, setting up cool shots, exploit the Vegas terrain and whatnot a bit more.
So I
But you
I, I
don't
think
get
I
either of
actually
that in this movie.
I
You get a
like your
little bit, but
I like your first pitch better, I think.
yeah.
Just have the heist happen when the apocalypse goes down. They're trying to get out, and then you can still have your ticking time bomb of they're gonna nuke the city.
Yeah, it's a deconstruction of the formula where the innocents are caught up in the zombie apocalypse, and then there's a dynamic of these overbearing, violent figures that have them at gunpoint. You get a lot of that dynamic in some of these zombie movies, but getting it from the other end, what I think would be an interesting way to tell the story.
Yeah.
But no,
Although
we
I will
just
say, with what's here, I think you could salvage this in editing. This movie just needs to be cut up to pieces.
sure you
So,
could definitely cut up a bit of this to get down to an hour and a half. And unfortunately, I'd say cut out the zombie tiger stuff.
oh
No,
God,
I think it looks cool, but it's very indulgent, and it doesn't really serve the story very much.
yeah, I'm torn, right? Because like I love the zombie tiger, and like that's the stuff I came to this movie to see. Um, I mean, honestly, I would have cut down a lot of the second act where it's them recruiting and getting into the city, and made that third act longer where it's just like gags in Vegas killing zombies. Like that scene where they lure the zombies in to like trigger the traps in front of the vault. That was great. That's what I wanted this whole movie to be.
Yeah, I would say maybe elongate that section a little bit. Punch up the pacing for the recruitment, as you were saying. Like, as much as Suicide Squad is not a great movie, at least we could get through the character intros very quickly in that. If you want to go with the whole Zack Snyder like stylization, insert that into this. That's fine. We get the initial interaction between Dave Bautista and his main female support. They have that thing. You don't really need to go into the whole
Although
deep
I
purpose of
will
it.
agree I will compromise with you a little bit on the tiger. And Red just face it, everybody on YouTube watches Red Letter Media.
I haven't seen it yet, but yeah.
So they because they talk about the zombie tiger, where he mauls the guy that's is inevitably going to betray them.
Mhm.
That is a 45-second scene. That needs to be 15 seconds at most.
Yeah, it needs to be a bit quicker. I was surprised at how elongated that scene was just to see the Tiger Sphinx just get in, just crush this guy's skull. It was cool to watch, but you can get to that point a bit more quickly. It is technically more realistic if a tiger was to act in the wild, technically, but
It doesn't make for engaging like watching.
it's just
Um,
that mentality throughout the whole film where we could go through some of these scenes a bit more quickly, and you can engage our attention a bit better.
so I also find it fascinating with this movie that I'm complaining about the runtime because if anybody who's talked to me for more than 10 minutes about DC film knows I love his DC films, and they are also very long, but I think they should be that long, if not longer, because there's a lot of grand ideas in those films. This is not Justice League. This
Now,
is a heist movie in Nevada with zombies. An hour and a
there
half.
there may be one grand idea, and that is potentially zombie fertility, because they do try to go into the idea of where zombies could actually reproduce not just through biting, but also through actual, fertility, which I find to be strange, but could be interesting between alphas. But we don't get into that enough,
I
and I don't know if it's even worth talking about in a movie like this when we're trying to focus on a lot of different stuff already. So
This is the zombie purist in me coming out. I'm so sick of smart zombies. Like running zombies, I think are my limit of what I will accept in a zombie film. anything more than that, I'm like, these aren't zombies anymore.
It's
I do
just yeah,
appreciate that he gives you a mix because you've got the slow, dumb zombies, you got the fast zombies, and you got the alpha hierarchy, whatever. Which maybe that's what you should be spending your runtime on. Give me a breakdown of like their culture, I guess. But like, I don't know, man. I like simple zombies.
that's what Land of the Dead should have been. Something where we get more into that. This sort of movie cut out this filler with with the zombies being zombie-ish together. We really don't need these scenes to communicate what's going on. You can cut a bit of that out. We don't need a lot of stuff with the security guy. Just put him in just once you shoot him in the knee, give it a few seconds, zombies come in, they take him, then we see him again at the end when he's a threat again, very briefly. Mm,
Yeah. Um I was really disappointed by this movie, man. Like I don't know. I doubt you had the hopes that I did going into it. Um
I was already fairly skeptical of its quality going in, but it looks cool,
I
sure.
don't even think it looks good. So I guess that's the other thing we need to touch on. Two things with visuals. First of all, this is Zach's first film where he is doing the cinematography himself. Um and I think it looks like shit.
It's serviceable, but for Zack Snyder's standards considering what we've seen before, it's definitely lacking, I would say.
Because you get a lot of that like it has no like depth of field. Everything besides what's right in front of the camera looks blurry.
Yeah, I did see quite a few of those shots, certainly, where we get a lot of out of focus shots as transitions to the next shot, which I found to be a very weird uh, technique. Um, I'm assuming it's purposeful because I'm certain that Zack Snyder knows that usually out of focus shots aren't supposed to be used that way, but he's trying to be experimental or something.
I don't know. Well, and so the other thing I think is because he usually shoots on film, and this was shot digitally, and I think this whole movie looks a lot like that nightmare sequence that he shot for Justice League that feels tacked on at the end. I think that with digital film, he doesn't know what he's doing, and anything with digital is going to look like shit. Because this whole movie looks like that nightmare sequence at the very end of Justice League.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's sad, but yeah, you definitely
Although,
this is supposed to be a like a grand spectacle of where we get to see Vegas in like faded glory, and we barely get any of that. Um, you get to see some neon signs, but that's not really. There's supposed to be like some like faded wonder that you're supposed to get in this sort of you know set, but it just feels bland,
yeah,
and it's a real shame.
yeah, because like if he had just gotten Larry Fong or someone that he's worked with before, imagine this movie, but it looks like BVS did.
Hmm.
This would be an amazing film if it just looked better. I mean, it still would be have pacing issues, but at least I wouldn't be bored because there'd be something to latch onto.
Yeah, do that, get some of the editing to, like, trim some of the scenes down. Yeah, this would be a much better received film in my opinion. And I budget for this between 70 and 90 million bucks, box office 1 million.
Okay, but to be fair,
But of course this is also Netflix, so who really knows what we're actually getting in terms of
right.
revenue,
So
as well as marketing and whatnot, but
to yeah, I was gonna say to be fair,
yeah.
this had a very limited theatrical run.
Mhm.
And Netflix has come out and said it is one of their most watched like original films.
Yeah. I'm always skeptical about what Netflix says, but I guess I'm not sure why they would lie about it, this one specifically.
Are you ready for the prequel film and the
Uh,
anime?
Oh
Okay.
boy. Yeah.
In all fairness though, this universe, I think, could make a good anime if done well. So I'm interested in that.
We have zombie anime stuff. It can be done.
Yeah.
Uh,
High
yeah,
School of the Dead is fucking amazing. Like,
yeah,
I'm pissed it never got an ending, but
yeah. Well, the sad thing about that is going briefly into High School of the Dead. The writer's dead. He couldn't continue the story. He died way too young, unfortunately.
yeah, it's one of
Which
those things
also,
where it sucks it never got an ending, but I completely understand it, and all of my thoughts and to the family of the author. I'm
yeah,
obviously
yes,
terribly sorry to hear that happen.
yeah. There's a lot of manga writers that unfortunately seem to die early deaths, which is very sad. The writer for Berserk, he's dead too. He passed away recently, Kintaro, and he or Kintaro, and he'll never finish that epic, and
Yep.
it's very sad.
Yep.
Back to other
Well,
tragedies, Army of the Dead.
so the other thing I did want to mention about this movie's visuals, and I do want to praise it for this. So the helicopter lady,
Mhm.
she was digitally inserted into this film.
Really? Okay, I
She
didn't know that.
she has never. Batista talked about he never met her. I couldn't tell throughout the entire film.
Okay, that's a praiseworthy element. Yeah,
Yeah, because the original person that they cast got a whole bunch of like allegations against him, so
yeah.
Snyder recast.
It's Chris D'Elia, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Of course, he's still contesting it. I can't really make too many comments on it. Um, it is impressive what they've been able to replace almost pretty seamlessly.
yeah, and I like her overall. I mean, I love the scene where they go to recruit her, and she's just like, "Yeah, my life sucks. With $2 million, it could suck less." It's
Yeah.
great.
I will say in hindsight, I can then recall scenes where, oh yeah, she never really appeared like exactly in the same camera angle or the same shot as the other characters did, but I can only recall that in retrospect.
Yeah,
So
I just don't think it's noticeable unless you're looking for it.
yeah,
And even then, you'd have to be like, you'd have to like you mentioned, notice the camera angles and like, or look at her eyeball to see where she's staring off at or something. I think personally, it never took me out of the film. Granted, the movie being boring took me out of the movie, but
yeah. For me, actually, one character that I wanted to like but couldn't like was Dieter, the the vault guy.
he's so annoying.
It's so sad because like an eccentric character like that could do very well in a movie like this. We've seen this type of, the fish out of water guy actually be, a thing that pulls the film up quite a bit. But he brings it down. He interrupts this action like montage scene in this panoramic view to ask, "How do you kill a zombie?"
I don't mind him not having experience in killing zombies because they're isolated to one city. But what I hate is the joke that that scene ends on. But though, okay, but what if I bash them in the rock and it's trying to do that awkward like, well, yes, that would kill them
Yeah,
thing.
it's so overblown. It's like by this point, I understand why, quite literally, within the world building, perhaps that could be justified. But by this point, us as the audience, we know. We don't need it to explain it to us, and if we have it explained to us, it's going to seem obnoxious, especially if it's elongated like that. And then from that point on, he's never truly competent until he gets to the safe. But even then,
It's questionable.
yeah,
I don't know. I pretty much everyone outside of Batista, his daughter, and the pilot, I thought they were all just kind of bland and expendable.
that and the movie set kind of validates that opinion because they really are expendable. Um, you get some muscle, some gunmen, but they don't really contribute a whole lot to the movie at all.
Although
Um,
I did get a good laugh. Because you get that scene with Batista and that one woman, and she has this like heartfelt scene with him
yeah,
where she's like, I've been waiting for you to realize that we could be something special. And in the very next scene, a zombie just snaps her neck.
Yeah. The actress's name is Ana de la Rig Riguera, I think, and she has some experience in HBO and like Amazon TV series,
Mhm.
but I've never really seen her before in any other movie.
I've not seen really anyone in this movie and other stuff except for Batista, of course, and the military guy at the beginning
Yes.
was in BVS and Smallville.
Yeah, I recognized him from somewhere. I couldn't remember exactly where I saw him from, but I
He
knew that he was a return.
he is the Jimmy Olsen in BVS that everybody freaked out about because they killed him in 2 seconds.
Yeah. I also recognize Theo Rossi as the really really evil security guy in the camp that they
Who is
sacrifice.
what has he been in? Because now that you mention it, he did look familiar.
Yeah, he is dude, where is specifically? He's been in Cloverfield. Um I've recognized him in more TV stuff. Oh, Luke Cage. Luke Cage.
Oh yeah,
That's he's Shades. But he's also been in a few other like TV stuff like here and there throughout the years, ever
and
since 2001.
um speaking of him, I guess that's going to lead me into my next point. So I am all for horror movies with political commentary. We've watched quite a few on here that I think have really well and timeless political commentary. This movie does not.
It tries to bring in the whole I'm guessing like illegal immigrant like detention center kind of commentary to it. I don't think it makes any sense in this context though. Because I can understand why you might want to quarter enough people coming in, but then why would you keep them there? It's zombies. If you understand that they're clean and uninfected, you want to get them out of there as quickly as possible. You don't want them to be there to be potential fodder. That's just a danger to everyone.
And I think if you didn't bring attention to it, it would be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, but I see what they're going for, and at least they were subtle about it. But because it's Snyder, he has somebody on the news just beat you over the head with what it's supposed to be.
Here's an easy way that you could have fixed this. He doesn't do this, but there's an easy way to fix it. What you could do is you could say we are continually evacuating people from Las Vegas because we know of a lot of people who not only live in the space but also live underneath, and people are consistently coming out of the woodwork, but they don't do that, and then they make it political, and it's inserted there so sloppily.
And I
Also,
think there's supposed to be something with the thermometer thing, but I don't remember for sure.
I think it's maybe another insertion thing because of pandemic stuff, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I That
It's
stuff
it's
doesn't need to be there.
it's very odd and it's very distracting, and it doesn't really serve the plot at all.
No.
And honestly, the whole B plot is rather intrusive, honestly, which actually doesn't really endear me to the daughter that much because she's very much not helpful to the group, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Also, a gripe that I have with a lot of movies that use nukes. Nukes are not just explosions. They have nuclear fallout. And as much as I like to suspend my disbelief, all of those characters are dead. It doesn't matter if you manage to escape the explosion, the nuclear radiation would kill you. Um, Not necessarily
I'm
instantly, but you would die eventually anyway.
yeah, I mean I'm more forgiving of that because that's just a movie thing. And this movie is already stupid. So it's
That's
like,
true.
yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, and apparently we have our what's his name? Omari Hardwick as Vanderho, who manages to ever so conveniently not turn so quickly and actually somehow get on a plane, having a bite this whole time. But still, it's so stupid. He should have turned much more quickly than that. And we established that people turn a lot more quickly than that. There's no reason for him to be immune or more resistant. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where we have to have this tragic, overly tragic ending where, oh yeah, things are going to get worse again. I,
Oh,
I
see,
don't get
I don't know. Like, I tend to try to be more optimistic about a movie, and like, yeah, horror movies often have that stinger at the end that's like, oh, but it's not over yet. Like, this isn't as a happy ending. This ending just felt like, well, we got to do a sequel.
it.
Um,
Yeah.
I did like the opening credits. They're too long, which is indicative of the whole movie. But that's where you get most of the Vegas stuff because you get like the zombie showgirls. You get that. I think that's Richard Cheese again cover, which is going to lead me into my next point. But I guess first, what did you think of the opening credits?
So for me personally, I enjoyed the montage. I did not enjoy pink credits. I thought that was a very weird choice, but at the very least, if it's going to be pink, whatever, fine. Center justify it. Don't be this weird left justify text coming in. And I know I'm speaking as an English major. It's not aesthetically pleasing in the slightest. So I don't get it. I don't get the what it is with that. But other than that, sure, I'm fine with it. It's one of the sections where we actually get a lot of the point where we can exploit the scenery of Las Vegas. Um,
And I think
past
it sets up a better movie than what we got.
yeah, which is a real shame, but at least we get something.
Hey, what's
Um,
up, Noah? Good to see you, man.
hey Noah, how are you doing, man?
So I'm gonna use the opening credits to segue into my other major issue with this movie, which we kind of touched on in Dawn. This has the most obnoxious music choices.
Yeah, it's like we're getting another Suicide Squad situation.
Yeah, yeah, Noah, we've been tearing it apart for like
Man,
20 minutes.
they cover the doors.
I didn't even
Why?
notice that one. Which one is that?
Oh, it's one of those landscape shots where I think they're on the road or something. They're on their way, and they cover "This Is the End" by the Doors.
Oh, okay.
Why?
So
You can't cover that song.
I'm gonna bitch about their cover of Bad Moon Rising
Oh, there's that too. No,
because
there's a
that
lot of bad covers.
so when I was listening to it in the movie, I was like, okay, this isn't the worst thing I've ever heard, because it's not. I've heard way worse, like slow, sad, mournful covers. But then I started thinking about it within the context of the film. Fuck no. Stop doing. If you want a song, just play the original fucking song. It can't be that hard. Like,
I'm wondering if there's rights distribution issues with certain songs and then you have to cover it to get past certain restrictions or something. That's the only way I could justify those sorts
but
of
I would
decisions in my head.
but I
Past
would
that
think you'd
point,
still have to get the rights to cover it.
yeah, it's I'm not sure what's going on in the heads of the people who are choosing this music, but it doesn't work.
The one that made me the angriest, mostly because it was the most obvious.
Hmm.
You cannot put Zombie by the Cranberries at the end of your zombie film.
No, that was probably. I mean, I complain about the Doors cover, but that one was probably the most obnoxious. And the
It's no, you don't do that.
I love the song.
Yeah, I
It
do
doesn't
too.
work. It doesn't work though in this particular context.
Oh my god, I lost it.
Oh yeah, how about the acoustic version of "Zombie" by Noah said? Yeah, we
Was that a cover? Because I thought it was. I'm gonna be honest. I thought it was the original.
I thought it was the original too, but then again, I tried to block it out because I was
I
trying to
was
ignore that and
laughing
trying to
too.
take the film seriously, but I can't because
I was laughing too hard. Yeah. I just no. I will accept Down with the Sickness because in Dawn of the Dead because they use it well. I
and it's
think.
in the credits and it's fine.
Well, it's
We
in
we
two
kind of ramp it.
places
Oh yeah, you're right. It
because you
is in
get the
two places.
montage with it, which is fine because it's a montage
Yeah.
and it's a light-hearted version of the song. It's like a like jazz big band cover. And it's just kind of like lightening the mood. And then you get it in the credits. He didn't put the actual song in the movie.
Now, it, that Zack Snyder with Restraint in 2004, not at all an Army of the Dead.
No.
It's a real shame, and it wasn't a cover, it was just the acoustic version. Yeah, that's yeah. Cranberries did 2
Oh,
versions of the
okay.
song. I
I'd
was
like
a
to
big 2
listen. I'd like to listen to that acoustic version. You think that'd be pretty good?
It's on
Just
YouTube somewhere, I'm sure.
it's not in this movie.
No.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say. I'm really disappointed by this movie.
This movie feels gross. Probably be probably because of a lot of the production issues, the production hell that this concept suffered in. It's
Yeah.
just a real shame, and the worst thing about it is that it doesn't really use Vegas very well as a background thing.
Yeah.
You could just put this in any other place with a casino or a bank or something, and
I feel like Snyder forgot he's not making a DC movie anymore.
I think he's losing his touch, unfortunately, and his movies are becoming more samey, unfortunately. Which is it's sad to say, which I don't like to say about creators. One of the things I like to give, like, certain passes to some people, at least he's trying to make something. But past this point, he doesn't really have an excuse to make movies like this anymore. He needs to, try a bit better now. But this feels like a Suicide Squad syndrome,
Yeah.
you know, which is a shame.
Yeah. And I mean, if you like this movie, all the more power to you. I'm one of the biggest Snyder defenders that I know. I like almost every movie that he's made. I haven't seen like the animated film and Sucker Punch that he did. But I like Dawn of the Dead. We just talked about it for like half an hour. I like 300. I like Watchmen. I like BVS. I like Justice League. I like Man of Steel. I This movie's atrocious. Um, I'm gonna give it a 2.5 because there is some stuff in there I like. Like I said, I like Batista and I like the Zombie Tiger is cool. And I think with editing, this could be a 3 out of 5. Um, but it needs to be re-edited, cut down, something. Snyder does not need to do cinematography ever again. I just don't think he's good at it. Um, yeah,
You need
I'm super disappointed in this one.
Yeah, for me, if you fix the editing and, ramp up the pacing so it's a bit smoother, you fix the visuals, you fix the script by hiring a new writer, you fix a bit of there's too many fixes though. And unfortunately, because of that, despite the fact that I like some of the action and I like Batista, it gets me a 2. I think this is a below average movie. There's too much stuff to fix about it. I think that makes it salvageable, unfortunately. The editing could make it a bit better, but there's still a lot of fatal flaws about this movie that just make it, well, yeah, this film is fine, but why would you want to watch this film and just not watch a better zombie movie? And there's
You know
plenty of
what's
those around.
insane to me?
Yeah. But
The writer of John Wick 3 worked on this script.
yeah, for me, I looked at the writing credits. Usually, productions like this will get a main writer and then 2 others. So you get 2 essentially fill-ins, but I credit most of the script to Zack Snyder because he's the one who has oversight. He's a producer and the screenwriter and the director. Who's going over Zack Snyder's head to make decisions? Certainly not Shay Haddon and Joby Harold. I've never heard their names before.
They
They're
both
kind
worked
of
on John Wick Chapter 3, which is a good movie.
yeah, but you also get things like Awake and like King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Transformers stuff. These are kind of people that you put in
They're
just
yes men.
essentially to just yeah, essentially.
Yeah, I hope that Snyder works with a team that'll rein him in again. I think Snyder unrestrained can work. Opinions vary, of course, but like his cut of Justice League or BVS, which I'm a big fan of those films. But this, I don't know what he was thinking. If it's just an experiment, like to see, what he can do, like with different techniques and stuff, whatever. Like you made a bad movie either way. Um, and
If it,
I'm
if it
almost
makes
thinking
me,
I'm too generous with the 2.5, but I don't know if I would say it's below average.
well, hey, Noah agrees with me. He gives it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if this experience helps him make a better movie later, then I will enjoy that theoretical movie. I don't really want to give too many passes to this one, considering how long this has been cooking. So
Yep.
there are worse movies out there on Netflix, but there's also a lot of better movies on Netflix too.
Yeah, I mean, I sat through the Bye Bye Man. Like, this is better than the Bye Bye Man.
There are better movies with Dave Bautista.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Uh, Blade Runner 2049, if you want to see a bit of a cameo with him in the beginning.
Still got to watch that.
It's a good
Um.
movie.
So yeah, and then needless to say, of course, and I'm gonna speak for Milton because I'm pretty sure I know his answer, but neither of us want to see this again.
No.
I saw it twice, and that was
Just oh no,
so
man.
I watched it last weekend when it first came out because I wanted to get ahead of any spoilers. But
Hmm.
I always rewatch a movie even if I've just seen it recently when we're doing the show. So I watched it again today, which is why I was late because I had to keep pausing the movie to do other stuff. But yeah, the second time I was just like, I this is exactly the same experience I had the first time. So Milton, I have a couple different ideas for next week. Um, we can spin the wheel, but I don't know about you, but I'm still kind of in a zombie mood.
I'm feeling the same way, actually.
So why don't you look on the list and see what if we have anything paired with Dawn of the Dead 1978?
That is a good question. Let me look. Dawn of the Dead.
Noah, since you weren't here while he's doing that, the remake of Dawn got a 4 out of 5 from me and a 3.75 from Milton.
Yeah. I don't think Dawn of the Dead is even on this list, which is very strange.
That doesn't surprise me. Austin's not a big fan of zombie films. I
But
thought I put something on there.
but
So
why
here,
don't oh sorry, go ahead.
well, hit me with your idea first. It might be better.
But here's my idea. So we've seen Night of the Living Dead. The next movie we could watch could be Dawn of the Dead and then Day of the Dead.
And you
Finish
know
out the
what?
trilogy.
My only issue though is we didn't do the original. We did the remake of Night.
Oh no, we did. Well, I watched the original. If you remember the episode, I talked quite a bit about that.
But you know what? So my original idea was to do Dawn and Return of the Living Dead because they are both in their own way sequels to Night of the Living Dead.
Hmm.
But I think I like your idea better. So let's cap out the Romero. I
The
don't even know
Romero
if I want
trilogy,
to.
I guess, if you
It's
want
the
to call it
trilogy,
that.
but I don't know if I want to say cap it out because we never really actually did the original movie. But let's keep the zombie train going with Dawn and Day of the Dead, and then at some point we'll go back to Night and cap off the trilogy. We've already done it backwards because we did Land of the Dead first.
Yeah. I could always bring out that graph that I put in of Night of the Living Dead with like Tom Savini's remake and do the comparison between the two
Um,
again. Could
oh,
talk
and
about that briefly.
I guess the other thing I'm gonna go back to Snyder's Dawn of the Dead real quick
Hmm.
because I find this interesting as well. This his that movie also has a director's cut, but it's only 10 minutes of different, and I'm pretty sure it's just like gore stuff. So I don't know about you, but I watched the unrated cut, and there's some cool gore in that movie.
I saw the unrated cut as well. Yeah, it's good.
All right.
I don't know if I need extra gore in a zombie movie if it already has plenty to spare. I'm not opposed to it either, though.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you think of those movies.
I
Next week,
yeah,
guys, Dawn and Day of the Dead.
I'm really looking forward to these movies. Yeah.
I am too. But yeah, that is going to be it for I think for tonight's episode of Haven of Horror. Milton, as always, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy making you watch these things, even when it's Army of the Dead.
I didn't hate it too much. It's like I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, just wait till we get into some of the exploitation, like 70s and 80s
Uh, no,
block.
I've yeah, we'll get there. But hey,
Then he's really gonna hate me. But
I love the history of film, so going into exploitation cinema is like one of those things you have to get into to understand the history of movies. So yeah,
Thank you guys for hanging out with us. If you're watching this live, if you're listening to this after the fact on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, wherever, thank you as well. Follow us down on social media down in the links in the channel description, and we will see you guys next Saturday for two more excellent Romero films.
thank you for watching, everyone.
Peace out.